Your recognition empowers the ritual. My gratitude. And may the warp listen when you speak. So, which chaos god deserves your soul? Thinking about handing it over to one of them. Are you? That's ambitious. In the grim darkness of the far future, there are definitely worse life choices, probably. Whether you're a burned-out Imperial drone sick of serving the corpse emperor, or a thrill-chasing heretic hungry for the ultimate power boost, one thing is clear. You've got options, 4 of them, to be exact. The big 4, the Ruinous Powers, the dark gods of chaos. And like any sleazy merchant with a too-wide smile, each one is more than happy to offer you a deal. But which chaos god is actually the best to sell your soul to? It's not like you can ask for store credit or a return policy if you regret it later. This is a single-use transaction with eternal damnation baked in. So you'd better align yourself with the deity that matches your flaws, appetites, and ambitions. Think of it less as a moral crossroads and more like picking your ideal postgraduate program. Except the school is hell, the scholarship is corruption, and dropping out is, well, not an option. Before we dive into each Chaos God sales pitch, a little background on chaos in Warhammer 40K. The Chaos Gods dwell in the warp or immaterium, a psychic dimension of pure emotion and thought that mirrors our physical universe. They aren't just big demons sitting on chairs. They're vast psychic entities born from the collective feelings and actions of trillions of beings. When you feel rage, somewhere Khorne gets a tiny bit stronger. When you despair, Nurgle gives an approving nod. Over eons, these emotions congealed into the 4 big personalities we know. Now a soul in 40K is basically your psychic fingerprint, and it's fuel for these gods. Selling or giving your soul to a chaos god means you're devoting your life and afterlife to them. It can happen knowingly. Yes, Dark Lord, I pledge myself to you. Or gradually every act of cruelty might inch you closer to Khorne without you even realizing. Either way, once the paperwork written in blood naturally is finalized, your soul is claimed. In return, you get those warp-granted powers and boons we've been talking about. But the Chaos Gods are always hungry. In the end, what they really want is your essence folded into their power base. To them, mortals are just living batteries, and consuming or claiming your soul is the ultimate objective behind any pact from the gods' point of view. From your side of the deal, you might rise as a mighty champion in life, maybe even ascend to demonhood after death. Or you might just wind up as another screaming spirit digesting in their gut. It's the definition of a high-risk, high-reward gamble. One more detail. The Chaos Gods are locked in an eternal competition, their so-called Great Game. Cooperation between them is rare, and when it does happen, it's temporary, and usually collapses into backstabbing. See the Horus heresy. Every god wants to be the one on top. Their rivalries are vicious. Khorne loathes Slaanesh's excess and decadence. Slaanesh considers Khorne a crude, tedious brute. Tzeentch and Nurgle are pure opposites, change versus stagnation, and endlessly sabotage one another. What that means for you is simple. Pledging yourself to one usually earns you the automatic hatred of the others. A Khornate champion, for instance, would happily take the head off a slimy Shay pervert on principle. The gods constantly nudge their followers to interfere with each other's schemes. Practically speaking, it's like joining a gang in the middle of a turf war. You get protection and allies under your chosen patron, but you also inherit some very powerful enemies from the other sides of chaos. Fun. With that cosmic fine print out of the way, we can look at your actual choices and what each ruinous power is dangling in this sub-marketplace. Bonus option. Some souls go for chaos undivided, basically selling yourself to chaos as a whole instead of picking a single sponsor. This route might spare you the most extreme body horror associated with any one god, and let you dabble a bit in all of them, but it's not exactly easy mode. It's like trying to keep 4 capricious tyrants happy at the same time. Unless you've got the iron will and sheer presence of someone like Abdon the Despoiler, the big boss of Chaos Undivided, who somehow rallies all Chaos forces, you're in a dangerous spot. Most likely, you'll end up with all the gods being vaguely interested in you, but none particularly invested enough to bail you out when things go sideways. Chaos Undivided can be potent, you gain versatility, but it's a precarious balance. If being non-committal is your style, you can roll those dice, but odds are you'll eventually drift toward a single patron, or end up as chaos spawn mulch. Anyway, back to picking your primary poison. Khorne, the blood god. K is the quintessential chaos god of war, slaughter, and unrestrained violence. If you're here for subtle schemes and chill aesthetics, kindly back away from the brass citadel now. K does not do calm, quiet, or conflict resolution. He's known as the blood god, the lord of skulls, and informally, the furious guy parked on the skull throne. Every drop of blood shed, every head lopped off in anger, is an offering in K's honor. In K's worldview, the frenzy of combat is the holiest ritual there is, and the only real solution to any problem is found at the biting edge of a chain axe. The first thing to know about selling your soul to K, it's the simplest transaction of the bunch. K doesn't want elaborate rituals or fancy contracts. He wants blood, and lots of it, preferably taken by force. The motto, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, isn't just a catchy battle cry, it's K's one and only commandment. In practical terms, that means if you pledge yourself to Khorne, you'd better either be already good at killing, or really enthusiastic about learning on the job. No killing equals no service, mercy, restraint, or negotiating a peaceful resolution. Those concepts got their heads chopped off a long time ago in K's domain. Why would someone choose Khorne? Perhaps you have a lot of anger issues and nowhere to put them. Maybe you watched your comrades or family get slaughtered and you crave vengeance with a burning passion. Maybe you're a born warrior chafing under the Imperium's discipline, eager to unleash your full savagery. Khorne welcomes all who revel in combat, from disgruntled Imperial guardsmen who've snapped to Adeptus Artus Space Marines who repainted their power armor red and went full berserker. If the idea of being the galaxy's ultimate close combat killing machine appeals to you, K might be your patron of choice, under K's wing, or rather under his gauntlet. You won't have to worry about complex plans or moral dilemmas. Just point yourself at the nearest enemy or friend on a slow day and get chopping. K's benefits package is straightforward but potent. He is all about martial strength, brute force, and unyielding courage, or unthinking rage, which looks similar on the battlefield. Pledge to Khorne and you may find yourself gifted with unnatural strength, endurance, and a tolerance for pain that would make a Necron envious. Adrenaline becomes your ambrosia. Fear will pretty much evaporate from your emotional repertoire, replaced by an unending supply of wrath. It's like an infinite rage battery installed in your soul, powering you through the bloodiest of battles. You'll charge machine gun nests, laughing, ignore wounds that should be fatal, and rip through armor with your bare hands if it comes down to it. Who needs finesse when you have ferocity? One surprising thing about K's ethos, there's a twisted sense of honor buried under all the berserking. K's all about martial pride and the thrill of the challenge. He despises cowardice, using poison, killing innocents who can't fight back, or sniping from a mile away. That's all a bit unsatisfying to Khorne. He wants worthy skulls taken in fair, or at least enthusiastic combat. A champion of Khorne might actually refuse an easy kill if it feels like a cheat. There are tales of Khornate warriors allowing an unarmed opponent to pick up a weapon before slaughtering them just so the fight is proper. Of course, once the fight is on, absolutely no mercy. Khorne isn't that sentimental. This is why many Khorne devotees prefer melee weapons. There's a purity to face-to-face slaughter. They'll spit on the idea of long-range warfare or sneaky tactics. There's a running joke that K must hate sniper rifles. Too much standing around, not nearly enough chopping. Still, let's be clear,
Kay's version of honor is about as refined as a chainsaw duel in a minefield. It's not knightly virtue, it's a compulsive drive to prove you're the strongest thing on the battlefield. Wipe out 1,000,000 helpless peasants, and Khorne might actually think you're phoning it in. But bring down a towering battle titan, or an enemy warlord in single combat. That's how you earn an immediate bloody nod of approval from the blood god. Kays especially adores it when his champions claim the heads of the toughest foes as trophies. If you're aiming well swinging for promotion in Kay's brutal pecking order, you'll be hunting for the biggest, nastiest opponents you can find and adding their skulls to your collection. Oplastay, Ortnachi. Every skull on that throne represents a challenge crushed, a rival erased, and believe this, Khorne loves a good tale, so long as it's told in corpses. Naturally, serving the blood god comes with some very straightforward expectations, non-stop violence. Kay does not care who you fight. In fact, he cares not
from where the blood flows, only that it does. That boils down to 2 simple rules. 1. Any kill counts. Xenos, heretic, loyalist, that irritating neighbor, even fellow Horn worshippers, if you run out of other targets. 2. If there isn't a battle handy, a Khorne devote will make one. Idleness is the only real heresy in Khorne's book. If you're not actively murdering something, you'd better be training to murder something, sharpening weapons, or randomly roaring, blood for the blood god, just to keep the rage simmering. The moment you slow down, rethink, or, heresy of heresies, attempt diplomacy, you'll feel that searing red fury clawing at your brain. That's Kay's way of saying, stop talking and start killing. Subtlety and grand strategy. Sure, Kay can respect a clever stratagem if it leads to more skulls on the pile, but 9 times out of 10, he'd rather you charge in bellowing at maximum volume into a glorious melee. His faithful often ditch ranged combat outright, unless we're talking about flamers or bolt guns, things that can double as blunt instruments once the ammo's gone. The ideal Khornate follower is the chain-axe-wielding, foam-at-the-mouth berserker. Look at the Worlders Legion, once noble space marines. They literally jammed devices called butcher's nails into their brains to crank aggression to max and shut off fear and empathy. The result? Psychotic super soldiers who only feel truly calm when they're soaked in someone else's blood. That's peak Khorne worship, right there. If all that feels a bit excessive, then Khorne may not be your drink of choice, or rather your chalice of blood. The social life among Kay's devotees is, shall we say, aggressively competitive. Khorne worshippers are almost as eager to butcher each other as they are to slay the enemy. There are no cozy gatherings or thoughtful philosophy circles in a Khorne cult, unless the discussion is about who gets to decapitate the next ultramarine, and that conversation will be resolved with fists, blades, and broken teeth. Allies in a Khorne warband are basically fellow killers who just haven't decided your skull would look better on their belt yet. It sounds lonely, but on the upside, no one pretends to like you. If someone in your little murder family has a problem with you, they'll skip the passive-aggressive comments and go straight to trying to split your head open. Brutally honest, in the most literal way. Another big forbidden zone in Kay's service: sorcery. Kay absolutely despises witches, psykers, and any kind of magic user. Yes, the irony is thick. He's a warp god made of psychic energy, but we don't question the divine double standards. If you've got latent psychic talent and you sign up with Khorne, expect it to sputter, vanish, or be ripped out of you in very unpleasant ways. Kay's idea of a magic show is cutting someone in half and never putting them back together. He trusts steel, muscle, and unfiltered fury. Fireballs and arcane tomes. That's nerd stuff for Tzeentch's camp. In fact, one of the few things Khorne and his followers despise almost as much as peace and mercy is Tzeentch and his scheming spell slingers. So, if you pledge yourself to Khorne, congrats. You're now firmly on Team Anti-Magic. Hope you weren't too attached to reading books for fun. A hypothetical fall to Khorne pictures Sergeant Garan, an Imperial Guardsman, loyal, dutiful, grinding through a doomed campaign against endless orc hordes. Day after day, he watches his comrades die, sees cowardly or incompetent orders handed down from above, and suffers wave after wave of savage enemy attacks. Inside him, anger and frustration build like an overworked boiler ready to explode. Then, one brutal day in the middle of battle, something finally snaps. Garan erupts into a red haze, carving through a dozen orcs in a frenzied rage, roaring so fiercely that even his own squad recoils. In that blood-soaked instant, Garan feels good for the first time in forever, powerful, alive, unstoppable. After the fight, when a commissar strides over to chastise him for his reckless frenzy, Garan doesn't bow his head or accept punishment. Instead, he turns his bayonet on the commissar. Whoops, looks like our good sergeant just crossed the line into treachery. But at this point, he doesn't care anymore. The commissar's head rolls, and Garan feels a savage satisfaction. From there, it's a quick spiral. Garan deserts the guard and links up with a ragtag band of other malcontents and berserkers. They carve a bloody path off-world, each kill further convincing Garan that strength and rage are the only truths. Eventually, he's leading a war band on a demon-forged space cruiser, raiding Imperial worlds for slaughter and skulls. He paints Khorne's symbol in blood wherever he goes. In battle, he's unstoppable, partly because by this point, he has so many warp blessings that he literally shrugs off injuries, and partly because he's too enraged to notice he's on fire or missing a limb. By now, he might not even remember he was once Sergeant Garan. He's Garan the Red Hand, or perhaps just Skulltaker, a champion of Khorne. His ultimate dream to kill his way to a worthy death in battle, or even ascend as a demon prince, if Khorne wills it. If an Imperial citizen from his home world saw him now, they'd think a demon straight out of the abyss had come. And they'd be right in a sense. That's the journey K offers, from anger to empowerment, to monstrosity at full throttle. K's personal realm in the warp is basically every heavy metal album cover fused into one on steroids. It's called the Brass Citadel, a massive fortress in the middle of a blasted wasteland surrounded by a moat of boiling blood and towering mountains of skulls. Your future skull could be in there someday. Motivational within. Legions of Khornes, blood-soaked demons, and the souls of the fiercest warriors battle constantly for his favor. The sky is eternally stormed and red, the ground littered with weapons and the bones of the slain. Absolutely nothing is quiet or calm in K's realm. It's an endless arena of combat. Khorne himself sits on a throne of brass atop that mountain of skulls in a keep forged from iron and bone. He's encased in Baroque armor, and he doesn't just sit. He howls victory cries and hurls curses at his enemies, including the other Chaos gods, while clutching a colossal sword. The throne room is filled with his favored bloodletters and fleshhounds, demonic beasties, eager to tear apart any intruders. The whole place is basically Fortress Murder turned up to 11. If you ever earn a visit there, or when your soul is claimed in death, you'll be part of that endless battle, either as a skull on the pile, or a warrior in the fray. For a Khorne devote, that might sound like paradise. For anyone else, it's a never-ending hellscape of violence. But hey, you're the one considering selling your soul here, so presumably the thought of eternal battle is more exciting than terrifying. What's the endgame for a Khorne devote in life? Well, if you're extraordinarily good at what you do, killing everyone in sight, Khorne might reward you with demonhood. Ascended Khorne champions become terrifying demon princes, essentially immortal warlords, who get to keep slaughtering forever on a grander scale. Imagine growing bat-like wings, horns, fiery eyes, and basically becoming a towering demon general. That's the promotion. Angron, the former Primarch of the World Eaters, took this route. He's now a colossal demon prince of Khorne, a bloodthirst in all but name, rampaging across the galaxy, living his best life, which is also his worst rage. On the other hand,
If you displease K or show weakness, don't expect a gentle severance package. At best, you'll simply die in battle, probably torn apart by someone more cornered than you. At worst, Khorne might let you live just long enough to realize how badly you failed him, right before one of your own rivals takes your head as a trophy in K's name. Speaking of trophies, let's not forget K the Betrayer, one of K's most infamous mortal champions. This guy exemplifies the whole no friends only targets ethos. During the Battle of Skalathrax in the Horus Heresy era, when his fellow World Eaters wanted to call it a night, because the planet's freezing temperatures were lethal, K's got so angry at the idea of stopping the slaughter that he started killing his own allies to keep the momentum going. Yes, his solution to people not fighting was to fight them. It's the kind of logic K's adores. K survived that night. He's too angry to die, and earned the title Betrayer, which he wears as a badge of pride. In K's realm, betraying your friends because they weren't killing enough is just showing initiative. K's now wanders the galaxy as a one-man, one superhuman murder machine, eternally seeking the next fight, and K loves him for it. As for your soul's ultimate fate, Khorne isn't exactly offering a cushy afterlife in a cloud palace. Unless you achieve Demon Prince status, in which case you effectively become part of K's eternal war host. Your soul is basically going to fuel K's bloody games. Some say the skulls of K's devotees literally add to the great skull piles of his throne. Your consciousness snuffed out as just another trophy. Others suggest your soul gets to keep fighting in the warp as a crazed spirit eternally joining the battles in K's domain. To a true Khorne fan, that might actually sound fantastic. No peace and quiet, even in death. For anyone else, it's a nightmare of endless carnage. But hey, if you're considering Khorne, peaceful rest in the afterlife probably wasn't on your priority list. Khorne pros: incredible physical power and combat skill. Fear becomes a foreign concept to you. Simple, clear purpose in life. No confusing moral gray areas. Just red. Lots of red. You get
to yell badass one-liners like skulls for the Skull Throne, and actually mean it. If you love weapons and armor drenched in gore, you'll have the best collection on the block. Promotion opportunities, fight well enough, and you might literally become a demon. How's that for upward mobility? Khorne cons. Life expectancy.
Short, but very exciting. You'll probably die violently. Best case in a blaze of glory.
Worst case as someone else's skull trophy.
Zero work-life balance. It's all war, all the time.
Hobbies outside of murder not happening. Colleagues will try to kill you. In fact, they almost certainly will at some point.
Maybe even for fun. No magic, no psychic powers, no fancy tech, only hitting things.
If you like variety or subtlety in your evil doing, Khorne is a one-note song, and that note is a death metal scream.
Eternal damnation means an eternity of warfare.
Even your afterlife is just more slaughter. Hope you really enjoy fighting.
Summary: Khorne is the best chaos god for those who crave unbridled strength, straightforward mayhem, and a life and afterlife of constant battle. He offers freedom through fury, the galaxy distilled to an eternal cage match, where you never have to feel weak or afraid again. If that sounds like your idea of fulfillment, then sharpen your axe, start chanting about blood and skulls, and prepare to give yourself to the blood god. Just remember, once the rage takes over, you're not quitting until death. And even death might just kick off your next fight. Blood for the blood god. Tzeentch, the changer of ways. If Khorne is a roaring fire, Tzeentch is a swirling psychedelic inferno of ever-changing colors. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, is the chaos god of change, schemes, magic, and knowledge. Where Khorne demands blood, Tzeentch demands grand plans and clever manipulations. He's the ultimate puppet master, plotting eons in advance and weaving fate like a cosmic spider. Nicknames include the Architect of Fate, the Great Conspirator, the Lord of Sorcery. Basically, if you're into 4 days chess or making Machiavelli look like an amateur, Tzeentch might be your guy.
Selling your soul to Tzeentch is less about a single frenzied act like a murder spree for Khorne, and more about a slow entanglement in his web of intrigue and secrets. Maybe you're a scholar, forbidden from digging into certain knowledge, and you think just a little demonic insight could help. Perhaps you're an ambitious noble or officer frustrated by how unfair fate has been to you, and you whisper, "I'd do anything to change my lot." That's practically an RSVP for Tzeentch to slither into your DMs with a quill and a contract. He thrives on the hunger for advancement and the desperation to alter one's fate. While the other gods might appear as brutish or overtly perverse forces, Tzeentch often comes to you as a seductive idea, the promise of understanding, of power through knowledge, of secrets unveiled and destinies rewritten. What do you get by signing on with the great conspirator? In short, knowledge and power, especially the psychic and sorcerous variety. Tzeentch is the master of magic. He basically is the warp's font of sorcery. Pledge to him, and you might find yourself able to warp reality with a thought, or at least with a few incantations and sacrifices, throwing fire from your fingertips, glimpsing the future in your dreams, turning your annoying rivals into mindless spawn. Fun stuff like that becomes possible. He can whisper secrets to you that imperial scholars or tech priests would kill to know. Ancient formulas, the true names of demons, the locations of hidden artifacts, the passwords to your boss's coordinator. Tzeentch hoards all secrets, like a dragon hoards gold, and he might just share a few if you're a devoted acolyte. Beyond raw sorcery, Tzeentch offers the power of change itself. That could mean literal physical changes. Mutation is a common gift from Tzeentch. More on that in a moment. Or changes in circumstance. Have you ever wished you could erase your past mistakes and start anew, or turn the tables on someone who has you under their thumb? Tzeentch lives and breathes that desire. He might quietly engineer events in your favor. The promotion you wanted for years suddenly falls in your lap after your superior has a bizarre accident. Or the Inquisitor sniffing around your activities inexplicably has a change of heart and leaves you alone. Of course, these bounds are not given freely. There's always a twist, but in the moment, oh, do they feel rewarding. Now, let's talk fine print and what Tzeentch expects in return. First off, change is mandatory. If you're the type who likes stable routines and straightforward answers, Tzeentch will drive you insane. Quite literally, possibly. He will upend your life. 1 week you're a lowly scribe dabbling in a cipher that summons a helpful little impart. Fast forward, and you're wearing robes covered in gibbering faces and coordinating a coup in your hive city, while juggling the fact that you now have an extra eyeball or two. Tzeentch loves plots. As his follower, you won't be allowed to just sit in a cave and study spells in peace. You'll be out there infiltrating, double-crossing, and executing convoluted schemes that make the Inquisition's head spin. And about those mutations, Tzeentch is notorious for them. One day he grants you the wisdom to outsmart your rivals. The next day you wake up with a technicolor tentacle where your arm used to be. It's all part of the package. The changer of ways changes you as well, often in body as much as mind. Some devotees consider these marks of Tzeentch blessings, signs of his favor. Extra limbs, feathers sprouting from your skin, eyes where eyes shouldn't be, or strange glowing runes crawling across your flesh. Wear them with pride. Just hope you don't get something too inconvenient, like a mouth in your stomach that blabs your secret plans at the worst time. Hey, it happens. Tzeentch has a sense of humor. If you're extremely unlucky or displease him, you might accumulate so many mutations that you devolve into a chaos spawn, a mindless, misshapen heap of flesh and tentacles. That's effectively firing you with extreme prejudice. The lifestyle of a Tzeentch occultist is a far cry from the berserk rampaging of K's crew. You'll likely be leading a double life, at least at first. Outwardly, a loyal imperial citizen, or a warlock or rogue trader, or whoever.
but secretly meeting with your cabal at midnight, poring over forbidden tomes by candlelight, and trading riddles with demons. Tzeentch's cults often infiltrate positions of knowledge or influence: librarians, scribes, advisors to planetary governors, even cells within the Adeptus Mechanicus or Administratum. The goal is to subtly reshape things from within, one conspiracy at a time. Think less, charge the fortress gates, and more. Sabotage the fortress from the inside, and have the gates open for you. Within your coven or cult, expect a lot of backstabbing, figurative, and possibly literal. Everyone is scheming. That's what Tzeentch encourages. After all, it's a toxic work environment, in terms of trust. Your fellow sorcerer buddy today might decide tomorrow that he'd advance faster if you were turned into a spawn, and he might be right. On the bright side, you'll become extremely good at paranoia. Trust no one completely, and keep contingencies for your contingencies. If that sounds exhausting, it is. The price of all that arcane power and secret knowledge is constant mental chess with everyone around you. Remember though, Tzeentch himself is the ultimate schemer. No matter how clever you think you are, he's 10 steps ahead and probably wrote the playbook you're using. If you serve him, you're playing his game now. The house, or in this case the god, always wins eventually. Tzeentch's realm in the warp is as wild and convoluted as you'd expect. Picture a never-ending, impossible crystal labyrinth. Hallways of stained glass that reconfigure when you're not looking. Floating islands with upside-down towers. Rivers of liquid magic that change anyone who wades in. Knowledge in physical form drips from the walls or flits by as shimmering sigils. Pathways reassemble behind you and doors lead to entirely new places depending on who opens them and when. At the center of it all sits Tzeentch on a shifting throne, often depicted as a constantly transforming mass of glowing eyes, aven features, and coiling tendrils. Mortal minds can't truly comprehend his form. You see whatever bizarre thing your brain can handle. If you ever earn an audience there, or if your soul ends up there after death, expect to be both awed and utterly confused. His domain is filled with bizarre, tricksy demons. The most powerful are the Lords of Change, giant bird-like sorcerer demons with iridescent wings and staffs. Each one a master of manipulation. Imagine a 15-fist-tall wizard bird that speaks in lies and half-truths. Then you have the endless flocks of horrors, weird twisted imps that come in pink and blue varieties. Fun fact, when you kill a pink horror demon, it splits into 2 blue horrors. Kill those, they split into tiny yellow brimstone horrors. Fighting Tzeentch's minions is like fighting a nest of Matryoshka doll gremlins. They just keep changing form. There are also flamers of Tzeentches. Think flying squid things that spew warp fire and screamers. Flying manta ray-like creatures that scythe through the air. Basically, Tzeentch's crib makes Alice's Wonderland look like a geometry classroom. If the thought of an endless puzzle where you can never fully trust what you see or even your own body intrigues you, well, there's a corner of the crystal labyrinth with your name on it. Metaphorically, unless Tzeentch actually writes your name on a wall to mess with you, which he might. A classic cautionary tale or success story.
Depending on perspective among Teeny's followers, is that of Azek Ahriman of the Thousand Suns. He was a loyal space marine librarian, psyker, who turned to Tzeentch largely out of desperation. His legion was afflicted with uncontrolled mutations, the flesh change, and he sought a spell to save them. Tzeentch, of course, was happy to provide the knowledge. Too happy. Ahriman cast the infamous Rubric of Ahriman, a spell so powerful it makes lesser sorcerers weep, intending to stabilize or freeze his battle brother's mutations. It did stop the mutations, all right, by turning all the weaker Thousand Suns Marines into literal dust sealed inside their armor. Oops. Ahriman got exactly what he asked for. No more mutations, but not what he wanted. His legion was effectively reduced to a bunch of empty suits of armor. Tzeentch probably cackled at how that wish twisted around. On the upside for Ahriman, he himself became one of the mightiest sorcerers in the galaxy, but he's now a renegade eternally trying to both appease and outwit Tzeentch. to maybe undo the damage he did. Good luck with that, buddy. Then there's Magnus, the Red Primarch of the Thousand Suns, and now a Demon Prince of Tzeentch. If you need a role model in the Sold My Soul to Tzeentch Club, Magnus is your guy. Brilliant, ambitious, and so confident in his sorcery that he thought he could warn the Emperor of Horus's treachery via a giant psychic transmission that went horribly wrong. He broke the Emperor's secret webway project and basically got the Emperor mad at him, and ultimately Magnus sided with Horus and accepted Tzeentch patronage when the Wolves of Ferrous Space Wolves Legion came to punish him. Now Magnus serves the Changer directly, and he's still arguably not entirely sure if he's running his own show or just another piece on Tzeentch chessboard, likely both. It shows that even demigods get tangled in Tzeentch web. Illustrative scenario. The Scholar's Descent. Meet Callista, an adept in the administratum, passing tithes and stamping papers all day on some backwater planet. She's clever, curious, and utterly bored. One evening, she chances upon a marginal note in an old archive scroll, a hint about a hidden library beneath the city hablocks. Curiosity piqued, Callista investigates after hours and discovers a secret cache of prescribed books in a forgotten vault. They're full of heretical lore and minor sorceress recipes. Instead of reporting it, Callista starts reading. She tells herself it's just to satisfy curiosity. Maybe she can find a way to improve the planetary crop yields using forbidden agri texts. That's helpful, right? But bit by bit, those books worm into her mind. She learns a simple sigil that can unlock any mundane lock. That sure comes in handy at work. Another incantation lets her eavesdrop on distant conversations, useful for office politics and blackmail. As her confidence grows, so does her ambition. Why is she slaving away for the Imperium for pennies, while corrupt nobles live lavishly? Callista begins to think she could manage things far better if she were in charge. And now she has a secret edge. Magic. Over months, Callista forms a cabal with a few like-minded colleagues, people she carefully identified and tested for disloyalty to the status quo. They start small. A blackmail here, a forged decree there. Each success aided by a little nudge of sorcery, their influence spreads through the planet's bureaucracy. Callista finds a strange joy in the unfolding complexity of her plans. It's like she's writing a grand novel, where everyone else are characters dancing to her pen. Of course, this draws attention. Perhaps a local arbitrator or a junior inquisitor senses that something is off. Too many coincidences greasing Callista's rise. They come sniffing around. Callista panics a little and consults the most esoteric tome she has dared to open. In it lies a ritual, dangerous but promising protection. She gathers her cabal under a moonless sky in the hidden library, and they perform this ritual. In a swirl of multicolored light, it works. A minor demon of Tzeentch manifests. A writhing many-thing that speaks in a soothing whisper. It bargains with them. It will mislead the investigators with false visions and misdirection in return for their devotion and a small sacrifice. Emboldened and desperate, Callista offers up a rival adept, the very co-worker who nearly uncovered one of their schemes as the sacrifice. The demon is pleased. It delivers on its word. The next morning, the Inquisitor leaves town, convinced the strange occurrences were just clerical errors and mass hysteria. From that night on, there's no turning back. Callista is a full-fledged Tzeentch cultist. The demon, now acting as her familiar, whispers more secrets to her. She starts wearing a hidden mark of Tzeentch under her robes. Her rise through the administratum ranks accelerates. Mysteriously, any superior blocking her advancement suffers an untimely disgrace or accident. By the time the planetary governor realizes a chaos cult is afoot, Callista effectively runs half the bureaucracy. When open rebellion finally erupts, spurred by food shortages and riots she carefully orchestrated, Callista and her cult are ready, with a cadre of traitor PDF Planetary Defense Force officers under her thumb. They orchestrate a swift coup. On the eve of their victory, as the governor's palace burns, Callista stands in the Grand Plaza, reciting an incantation from the most powerful grimoire she has.
The sky above turns pink and blue. Reality ripples. She feels the warp flooding in, and in a grand spectacle, a portal tears open. A Lord of Change steps through to congratulate its pawns. Callista falls to her knees, elated and terrified. She has achieved what she thought impossible, toppled a regime with cunning and magic. In that moment she thinks, this is it. I am truly powerful. What happens next? Perhaps the Lord of Change invites her to truly swear her soul and become something more, a favored servant, maybe even set on the path to demonhood. Or perhaps it just laughs, says, well done little mortal, and then casually flays her mind, or turns her into a spawn as her reward. With Tzeentch, both outcomes are equally plausible, but one thing is clear. Callista's soul is now well beyond salvation, woven irretrievably into Tzeentch's design, and oh what a design it was. Tzeentch prose, access to forbidden knowledge and secrets of the universe. Know things that would make a tech priest's brain explode. Potent sorceress powers. Warp reality. Throw warp lightning. Transform foes. Basically, you're a wizard. A very, very dangerous wizard. Master of your own schemes. You get to play the grand game of politics and magic, manipulating events from the shadows. World domination via conspiracy can be quite fulfilling if that's your thing. Change can be good. Stuck with a raw deal in life, Tzeentch can flip the table for you, just maybe not in the way you expect. If you love puzzles, mysteries, and the thrill of outsmarting others, Tzeentch offers an endless supply of that. Every day is mental gymnastics and secret unveilings. Tzeentch can't trust issues. Everyone in the cult is plotting something, possibly against you. You'll develop an eye twitch from all the paranoia, if you don't already have a literal third eye from mutation. Mutations galore. Sure, some might be cool, wings sweet, but you could end up a gibbering pile of flesh if you're not careful. It's hard to enjoy your newfound knowledge if you no longer have a functional brain. Nothing is straightforward or reliable. Every gift has a hidden catch. Every victory could be a setup for a later loss. You'll constantly second guess as what's real or a Tzeentchian trick. Mental strain. Keeping track of plots within plots is exhausting. Also, dabbling in the warp via sorcery can straight up fry your sanity if you're unlucky. It's easy to lose yourself in the schemes. Endgame. Ultimately, Tzeentch is using you for his own cosmic puzzle. Avoiding being a disposable pawn requires incredible skill. And even then, trying to avoid being a pawn might just mean you're moving exactly how he planned. Summary. Tzeentch is the best chaos god for those who crave knowledge, change, and the power to reshape fate itself. If you see the universe as a puzzle to be solved or a game to be won, and you don't mind a few tentacles or paranoid sleepless nights along the way, Tzeentch will open doors you never even knew existed. You'll trade the comfort of certainty for the exhilaration of the unknown. Just remember, in making you a master of deception and destiny, Tzeentch will also be deceiving you about your own destiny. But hey, that's half the fun. Also, the changer of ways would have you believe it was just as planned. After all, Nurgle, the Plague Father, from the twisting schemes of Tzeentch we turn to something that at first glance seems simpler, but is in its own way deeply profound and pungent. Nurgle, also known fondly by his followers as Grandfather Nurgle, or the Plague Father, is the chaos god of disease, decay, despair, and weirdly enough, hope and comfort. Yes, comfort. Nurgle is the jovial, rotting giant who gives you a big infectious hug and tells you not to worry about that whole dying thing. In the pantheon of chaos, he represents the inevitability of entropy. Everything rots and dies eventually, but rather than weeping about it, Nurgle says, embrace it, child. Usually while dumping a bucket of slime over your head, people sell their souls to Nurgle, typically not out of ambition or rage, but out of desperation or despair. Picture this, a terrible plague is ravaging your hive city. People are dying in droves, and you're infected, quarantined, watching your body decay by the hour. In your fever dreams, a voice whispers, I can take the pain away, I can save you, just let me in.
That's Nurgle knocking at the door. Many who turn to Nurgle do so because they fear death or hate seeing others, loved ones, communities suffer. He offers a twisted kind of salvation, immunity to pain, an end to fear, and even a form of immortality at a grotesque cost. It's the classic bargain with the devil made when you're at your lowest point. Only this devil shows up with a grandfatherly grin, a plague-ridden cauldron, and a swarm of friendly flies. What are the perks of being Papa Nurgle's favored child? On the surface, it sounds insane. You become a walking mass of sores and rot. But from the inside perspective, Nurgle's gifts are strangely comforting. First, he removes your pain and fear. The diseases he inflicts still ravage your flesh, but through Nurgle's blessings, you come to enjoy them in a sense, or at least you no longer mind. Your nerve endings might dull, or your brain chemistry changes. Agony transforms into ecstasy, or at least a grim joy. That hacking cough, it's practically a chuckle now. Those oozing sores and boils, badges of Nurgle's love, and popping one, might even give you a rush of euphoria. Gross, yes, but you truly won't care anymore. Secondly, Nurgle grants unnatural endurance and longevity. His followers, especially Plague Marines, Chaos Space Marines dedicated to Nurgle, are notoriously hard to kill. They'll wade through gunfire that would Swiss cheese a normal Marine, shrugging off wounds that should be fatal because, well, what's a hole in the gut when your intestines are already spilling out and still somehow working? Even as your body decays, Nurgle sustains you. Sickness no longer incapacitates, it empowers. Many Nurgle devotees effectively become immune to death by natural causes. They don't age or succumb to disease. Quite the opposite, they thrive on disease. They can still be killed. A chainsaw through the face will do it eventually, but they won't die from sickness, or even radiation, or most poisons. Picture being absolutely rancid, but practically unkillable. That's the Nurgle bargain. Lastly, there's the emotional bomb. Nurgle's embrace brings a perverse happiness, or at least an end to worry. Followers often describe an overwhelming sense of acceptance and belonging. Grandfather Nurgle loves you just the way you are, pus, scabs, and all. In a galaxy of cruelty and fear, that feeling of belonging can be incredibly seductive. Nurgle's followers form tight-knit communities. Plague cults can be like joyous, if horrifying, families. They sing Papa Nurgle's praises with gurgling laughter and find camaraderie in spreading his gifts. It's grotesque to outsiders, but from their view, they are the only ones who get it. That life is miserable and full of suffering. But by accepting Nurgle's corruption, it doesn't have to hurt anymore. It's a kind of blissful resignation. The world's awful, but we're okay with it. In exchange for these lovely benefits, what does Nurgle ask of you? Simply put, share the love. The foul plague-ridden love. Nurgle is all about spreading decay, literally and figuratively. If Khorne wants you to kill, and Tzeentch wants you to scheme, Nurgle wants you to infect, spread the plagues, bring low the mighty through corruption, show others the truth of life's cycle of decay and rebirth. This could mean contaminating water supplies, handing out tainted food to the poor, or just coughing on a lot of people. Nurgle's version of charity work. When a Nurgle cult moves into a new area, they often start by seeding it with disease and despair. By the time anyone realizes, half the populace is bedridden, and the fabric of society is rotting along with their flesh. But here's an important distinction. Nurgle's followers often genuinely believe they're doing folks a favor. In their warped minds, they're spreading Nurgle's mercy. After all, if everyone just gave in, they too would no longer fear pain or death. It's like a twisted evangelical mission. Let Papa Nurgle bless you so you can find joy in decay like we have. Of course, this joy comes at the cost of becoming a boil-covered monstrosity. But hey, details. The point is, Nurgle cultists are less about malice
and more about misguided salvation. They're the kind of bad guys who will infect a town with a zombie plague and genuinely smile as they watch it collapse, believing they've saved those people from the misery of normal, painful life. Another expectation: stagnation. Nurgle is the antithesis of change, which is why he and Tzeentch totally hate each other's guts. Metaphorically for Tzeentch, literally for Nurgle, who probably has Tzeentch's guts in a jar somewhere. Once you accept Nurgle's way, ambition kind of dissolves. You're not striving to be top dog, you're content to wallow. That's part of Nurgle's embrace, a bizarre contentment with your lot, however miserable it looks to outsiders. So if you had grand dreams of conquest or personal glory, Nurgle might scrub those out of you with his spores. You'll be happy, yes, but in a very static, smelly way. It's the trade-off. Peace of mind at the cost of progress. The day-to-day lifestyle of a Nurgle devote can actually seem oddly light-hearted if you ignore the whole rotting from the inside thing. Picture a group of plague cultists in a war-torn village. In the face of starvation and misery, they turn to Nurgle. Now that village is a grotesque scene. Huts covered in strange fungal blooms. The air thick with sweet, slight, spoiled odors. But the people, what's left of them, are smiling. They tend to fungus gardens growing out of corpses and sing cheerful, if off-key, hymns to the plague god. They call each other brother and sister, united by the diseases they share. It's a horrific parody of a happy commune. In more militant examples, take the Death Guard traitor legion of Space Marines. These were once proud warriors. Now they are Nurgles, chosen Marines. On the battlefield, Death Guard Marines advance in a slow, implacable grind. They don't duck or take cover much. They just trudge forward through hails of gunfire, because frankly, it barely phases them. Their armor is bloated and swollen with corruption, and toxic fumes and flies billow around them. They unleash plague weapons, shells and bombs that splatter diseases on impact, turning battlefields into quagmires of filth. When they take casualties, say a limb blown off, they barely notice. They might even pick up their severed arm and kind of staple it back on later. Nurgle's rot will stitch it in place eventually, or just grow a disgusting new limb. Their idea of a good time waiting into enemy lines and seeing the look on the foe's face as their last guns and flamers do nothing to stop the oncoming rotten juggernauts. Morale isn't an issue for Nurgle's forces. They're having a grand old time. Amid the carnage, cackling and gurgling jokes about the terrified fresh meat enemies. To them, war is almost a play date with Grandpa, spreading his love one bolter shell, full of virulent bacteria at a time. Hierarchy among Nurgle followers tends to be paternal or maternal in style. The most bloated, blessed individual often acts as the jolly leader of the pack, not through fear, but through genuine affection. They might call their underlings my children, or little ones, regardless of actual age or status. It's all very sickly sweet, emphasis on sickly. Also expect a lot of gross-out humor in Nurgle circles. What passes for comedy in a plague cult might be a Nurgling, a tiny impish daemon of Nurgle, pulling pranks like popping out of someone's pustule with a squeal. If you have a weak stomach, well, you won't for long once Nurgle's got you. They take delight in the very things that horrify normal people. That shared disgust becomes shared laughter. Now, let's visit Nurgle's realm. Surprisingly, it's often described as a garden. The Garden of Nurgle. Don't think tidy rows of roses and tulips though. Think swamps of sludge and forests of giant fungi growing from decomposed carcasses. It's teeming with life, but the kind of life you instinctively want to swat or flee. In Nurgle's garden, every insect is bloated. Every plant oozes slime, but there's a vibrancy to it, a sense that from all that death, new life, maggots, mold, etc., is constantly emerging. Nurgle himself usually resides at the garden's heart, stirring a colossal cauldron of filth and disease. Picture a Santa Claus-sized giant, covered in open sores and rot, but with a warm, if creepy, smile, happily dunking skulls and ingredients into a bubbling concoction, brewing up the next great plague to unleash. He's often depicted laughing merrily, because for Nurgle, creation of diseases is joyful work. One famous guest in Nurgle's garden is the Eldar goddess Isha. Yes, a captured Eldar deity lives there. Long story short, when Slaanesh massacred the Eldar pantheon, Nurgle rescued Isha, the goddess of healing, and keeps her in a cage in his garden. Why? Because Nurgle uses her to test out his newest plagues. He infects her with some ghastly concoction, watches attentively to see how it works, then cures her. Since as a goddess of healing, Isha regenerates but painfully. According to Eldar myth, Isha secretly whispers the cures for these diseases to mortal medics and healers in their dreams, undermining Nurgle's worst epidemics, where she can. A little rebellion under Grandpa's nose. This strange dynamic shows Nurgle's character. He's loving in a possessive and twisted way. He genuinely enjoys Isha's company. He likely thinks of her as a wife or daughter he must care for, but his caring involves incessant experimentation on her. Nurgle is bizarrely both cruel and caring. He doesn't hate Isha. He just thinks giving her every disease ever is the best way to show his affection. Nurgle's realm is crawling literally with his demons. Great unclean ones are the greater demons of Nurgle, huge postulant toad-like giants, who
act like jovial plague-ridden uncles. They often refer to each other and to Nurgle in familial terms, and they carry large rusted blades and sacks of disease. They're basically mini Nurgles in personality. They love to laugh, love to share, and love to kill with kindness. And by kindness I mean Ebola times 1,000. Then you have hordes of plague bearers, Nurgle's lesser demons, cyclopean horned emaciated beings who carry tall tally sticks or rusted swords. Plague bearers are sometimes called tallymen because they have an oddly bureaucratic role. They count. They constantly drone on counting diseases, counting souls claimed by Nurgle's plagues, etc. Imagine a droning accountant of death. They view each infection as adding to Nurgle's glorious ledger. And of course, the delightful Nurglings, tiny rotunded demon impies, who are basically pestilent toddlers. They caper around great unclean ones, get into mischief, and often act as both pets and weapons. A great unclean one might puke up a bunch of Nurglings and hurl them at the enemy. Nurglings themselves find everything hilarious. They'll pull faces, trip foes and nibble on victims, all while giggling insanely. If your soul goes to Nurgle, you might become a plague bearer or get dissolved into the mulch of the garden. But hey, maybe you'll be lucky and come back as a cheerful little Nurgling. Some might argue that's not a terrible fate, hanging out eternally in a gross but oddly happy garden under the benign eye of a jovial god. If you ignore the stench and grotesquerie, it's almost cozy. Perhaps the biggest success story for Nurgle was turning Mortarion and his Space Marine Legion, the Death Guard, to his cause. Mortarion was a Primarch who ironically hated Psykers and prided himself on endurance. During the Horus Heresy, the Death Guard's fleet got trapped in the warp and struck by a supernatural plague engineered by one of Mortarion's own men. First, Captain Typhon, who had secretly embraced Nurgle. As the Legion rotted alive in their ships, picture thousands of super soldiers writhing as their organs liquefy. Proud Mortarion reached his breaking point, in utter agony, and seeing his sons dying, he cried out to the warp for salvation. Nurgle answered with open, postulant arms. He saved the Death Guard from the plague by fully infecting them and remaking them as his plague legion. Mortarion and all his Marines underwent a nightmarish transformation. Their armor rusted and fused to their bodies. Their flesh swelled with corruption, but they stopped dying. Instead, they became immune to pain and far deadlier than before. Mortarion himself was elevated to Demon Prince status. Now, effectively, a demonic demigod in Nurgle's service. The bitter twist: Mortarion despised witches and the warp, yet now he is an eternal servant of a warp god, wielding sorcerous plague powers. He got what he wanted. His legion survived, but at the cost of their humanity and his pride. Now he sources on rot-winged demon wings, spreading the very plagues he once resisted. Irony and chaos go hand in hand. On a more human scale, consider stories like a farmer whose crops failed and family fell ill. In despair, he prays to anyone listening for help. A week later, a ragged wanderer, spoiler, it's a Nurgle cultist, comes by offering a miraculous tonic to enrich the soil and cure sickness. The farmer, out of options, uses it. Lo and behold, the crops grow bigger and healthier than ever, and the family's fevers break. But soon, the crops themselves are mutated with fungus, and the family develops strange coughs. Eventually, that farm becomes ground zero of a new plague cult, with the once simple farmer preaching that Nurgle blessed his land with abundant if tainted life. Case study: the Plague Saint. Consider Sister Daria, a field medic attached to an Imperial Guard regiment. She has seen endless trenches of wounded soldiers, diseases running rampant through the camp. Despite her prayers and skill, every day dozens die, screaming from infections she can't cure. Daria is compassionate to a fault. Each death feels like a personal failure, as a particularly virulent flesh-eating virus sweeps through the barracks. She feels despair deep in her bones. The medics are overwhelmed. Antibiotics are useless. In exhaustion and sorrow, Daria whispers in the dark, "I would give anything to save them." That night, as Daria tends to a feverish soldier, she finds herself humming a strange lullaby that she later cannot recall learning. The patient asks if it's a hymn to the Emperor. Daria herself isn't sure why she hummed it. Unbeknownst to her, something ancient and kindly in its way has heard her plea. The next morning, Daria discovers a mysterious sealed vial among her supplies, filled with a bubbling green liquid. A gentle voice in her mind urges her to administer it to the dying. With nothing to lose, she mixes a few drops into the water given to her worst-off patients. Miraculously, those soldiers don't die that day. In fact, by next morning, they're standing up. They look hideous, skin covered in boils, eyes milky, and faces half min-molted. But they're alive and oddly jubilant. They no longer writhe in pain. Instead, they laugh at the state of themselves as if it's all one grand joke. The commanding officers are horrified and declare these plague survivors tainted. They order them quarantined or executed to prevent spread. The soldiers, once loyal and afraid of death, refuse to be corralled now. Why fear death when Nurgle has given them life without pain? These men, grateful to Daria for saving them, now call her Saint Daria. With their support, Daria defies the commissars. When the firing squads come, her plague patients shield her, surprisingly resilient as bullets tear into their rotting flesh. A man with half his head blown off is still charging. In the chaos, a thick cloud of flies swarms the camp, plunging everything into confusion. Daria leads her band of infected survivors out of the military camp and into the wilderness. She is shocked at her own actions. She was a devout servant of the Imperium hours ago, and now she's harboring what the Imperium would call monsters. But seeing those soldiers smiling and thanking her, calling her saint, something shifts in her heart. The despair is gone, replaced by a warm purpose. She will care for these people and anyone else shunned and left to die. Traveling through water and lands, Daria's little plague company finds a village in the throes of a deadly pox. The local governor has quarantined it and basically written the people off for dead. Daria, ignoring her previous imperial orders,
marches right in with her followers. She ladles out that green elixir, now seemingly never ending in her vial, to the sick. Sure enough, the villagers stop dying. They rise from their beds bearing Nurgle's mark, skin pallid, lesions blooming, but they rise laughing, freed from pain. The village, once a place of misery, is now strangely merry, if horrifying to look at or smell. They hail Daria as a true savior. At that moment, Daria's dreams are visited by a towering figure of rot and joy, Nurgle himself, or an aspect of him. He thanks her for embracing his children and promises that he will always take care of her and her flock. Overwhelmed, Daria accepts Nurgle completely. When she awakens, she does so with a beatific smile. Despite several of her teeth falling out overnight, she has found her calling, bringing Nurgle's mercy to every plague victim, outcast and leper she can find. By the time Imperial forces eventually catch up to Sister Daria, they don't find a scared renegade. They find a cult. An entire region of the planet is swarming with her followers, living in filth, but seemingly happy, and spreading their cure to all who will take it. They have even built a makeshift shrine, where Daria, grotesquely mutated to a swollen matronly figure, sits and blesses the sick. To the Imperials, she's a heretic responsible for a massive zombie outbreak. To her people, she is truly a saint, the one who saved them from fear and pain. When the purge begins, for of course the Imperium cannot allow this to stand, Daria's people fight with unexpected vigor, even as they're cut down in droves. Daria herself never raises a weapon. She stands amid bolter fire, embracing those who fall, humming that same strange lullaby, even as bullets rip through her plague-ridden body. She dies eventually, but dies without fear, knowing Nurgle will receive her with open arms on the other side. And indeed, in Nurgle's garden, a new plague-bearer might pop into existence with a gentle laugh, ready to keep spreading grandfather's love. Her soul belongs to Nurgle now, and she couldn't be more relieved. Nurgle proles, say goodbye to fear and pain. Seriously, not much will bother you once Nurgle fully blesses you. Anxiety gone. Pain, you'll weirdly enjoy it. Near immunity to disease and possibly immortality from age or illness. Plagues can't kill you if you are the plague. Strong sense of camaraderie with fellow followers. A Nurgle cult is like the jolliest, grossest family you'll ever be a part of. Low maintenance lifestyle, personal hygiene, balanced diet, cardio, exercise, all overrated when your intestines are home to happy parasites. You can let yourself go completely, and no one will judge you. They're all oozing too. Dark optimism. Ironically, Nurgle's philosophy instills a kind of hope through acceptance. You'll always find a silver lining in the rot. Maybe literally silver, probably just mold. It's almost zen, a disgusting maggot-filled zen. Nurgle cons, you will look and smell horrendous. There's no sugar coating or deodorizing. This, you're a walking biohazard.
People who aren't Nurglified will scream and or vomit at the sight of you. Say farewell to a normal life. Once you're visibly Nurgle touched, the only communities that won't try to shoot you are other plague carriers. You can't exactly stroll into a city and make friends unless you plan to infect them too. Ambition dies along with concern for pretty much anything. Great for inner peace. Not great if you had personal goals beyond wallowing in filth. You'll be content doing basically nothing progressive. Constant physical decay can have drawbacks. Sure, you don't feel pain, but your eyeball might still pop out at an inconvenient moment, or your arm might literally drop off during dinner. Minor inconveniences. Enemies. The Imperium will exterminate you on sight if they identify you as a Nurgle cultist. Nurgle outbreaks are one of the few things that really get the Inquisition's attention. Also, Tzeentch's followers hate your guts. They see you as disgusting stagnators. So, if there are other chaos cults around, you might end up at cross purposes. Summary: Nurgle is the best chaos god for those who are hopeless, downtrodden, or simply fed up with the pain of existence, and who don't mind trading in their fleshly aesthetics for a guaranteed spot in Grandpa's rotten embrace. If you crave a perverse kind of peace, a world where nothing matters because everything decays, and you're oddly okay with that, Nurgle opens his arms to you. You'll get to laugh in the face of plague and death because you'll be causing it, and find joy in what terrifies others. It's a horrifying sort of enlightenment, but it is a form of enlightenment. Just be sure this is what you want for eternity, because once Nurgle's rot sets in, it's incredibly hard to wash off. Literally, no amount of soap will save you. Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Excess. Last but not least, we arrive at the most seductive and sensational of the Chaos Gods. Slaanesh, the Dark Prince of Chaos, Prince of Excess. If the other gods are about giving in to one particular vice, war, change, or despair, Slaanesh is about giving in to every vice all at once. Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Pantheon, born from the colossal decadence of the ancient Eldar Empire. Imagine a whole civilization so steeped in luxury, cruelty, and sensation that their collective excess birthed a god. That's Slaanesh, and that birth shattered their civilization overnight, which is a tale of caution for another time. Slaanesh, often depicted as a strikingly androgynous figure of impossible beauty, embodies lust, greed, gluttony, pride, pain, pleasure, perfectionism, artistry. Every extreme of experience rolled into one, where Khorne's call is battle and Nurgle's is the end of pain. Slaanesh's call is the siren song of pleasure and perfection beyond mortal limits. People sell their souls to Slaanesh not out of fear or anger, but out of desire. The desire for more pleasure, more beauty, more feeling, more everything. Perhaps you're a hedonistic noble who's already tasted every luxury the Imperium has to offer, and it all feels tame now. Maybe you're an incredibly talented artist or musician who wants to create and feel perfection in your craft beyond what normal senses allow. Or maybe you're just someone in a drab, controlled society who had one wild night and realized nothing in ordinary life will ever come close to that thrill. And damn it, you need more. Slaanesh's pitch is that they can give you everything you've ever wanted, every feeling turned up to 11. An endless banquet of sensation and delight. The catch, of course, is that you'll very likely destroy yourself indulging in it. But what a way to go, right? Signing up with Slaanesh is like getting a VIP pass to the ultimate cosmic nightclub of sensations. The immediate perks often include heightened senses and physical abilities. Colors become brighter, music more harmonious, food richer, pain more strangely exquisite. Every stimulus is amplified. You might develop a singing voice so unearly it can shatter glass and enthrall anyone who listens, or reflexes so sharp you can duel a dozen opponents while savoring a glass of fine wine. Slaanesh's touch is all about pushing you beyond normal human, or Eldar, or whatever species limitations in the pursuit of perfection and pleasure. Let's break that down. Perfection and pleasure. If you're an artist, Slaanesh might flood your mind with divine inspiration that makes you the greatest artist of your age. Though those visions might demand ever more twisted creations, painting with bodily fluids, sculpting from living flesh, minor details in the quest for the perfect piece. If you're a warrior, Slaanesh might bless you with superhuman grace, speed, and skill. Slaanesh's chosen in battle are often described as fighting with mesmerizing beauty. Deadly ballet dancers among the gore, the Emperor's children. A traitor Space Marine Legion dedicated to Slaanesh became so obsessed with perfecting warfare that they turned combat into art and even music. Ever heard of a noise marine? That's a slush space marine who has sonic weapons. Essentially electric guitars and amplifiers that liquefy your organs with sound. They literally go to war playing heavy metal that kills you, only Slaanesh would think.
What if battle but rock concert, and then pleasure? Whatever your vice or delight, Slaanesh can take it to levels you didn't know existed. Sensual pleasure is the obvious one. Slaanesh is the patron of every carnal excess and fetish. But it could be the pleasure of taste. Foodies beware, one bite of a Slaanesh delicacy and you might never stop eating. Or of sound, the ecstasy of perfect music. Many a choir or musician has been lured this way. Or of adrenaline, thrill-seekers pushing themselves to lethal extremes. Even pain carefully balanced becomes indistinguishable from pleasure with Slaanesh's tweaks. Thus the birth of sadomasochistic cults that blur the line between torture and ecstasy. Many who get just a small sip of Slaanesh's gift, say at a particularly wild cult party, are instantly addicted. You'll chase that first high, like a starving man chases bread, and Slaanesh will be there dangling the next ever more intense experience in front of you. So, what does Slaanesh expect in return? Devotion to excess, moderation, is a profanity in Slaanesh's vocabulary. You will be expected to keep pushing boundaries, seeking newer and more extreme experiences or achievements. If you ever say, "All right, I'm good, I'm satisfied now," Slaanesh will find that utterly unacceptable. It's always more. Think of it like being given an unlimited credit line of pleasure. Sounds great until you realize the payments are due in pieces of your soul, your sanity, and eventually your life. Practically, serving Slaanesh means indulging yourself and others in acts that society rightly considers abhorrent, because only by breaking taboos can you experience something truly novel. A Slaanesh cult might start relatively tame. Secret salons of aristocrats, exploring exotic foods, illegal stems, drugs, maybe an underground fight club or orgy. But it escalates quickly. Forbidden becomes degenerate, becomes downright monstrous. 1 month, they're hosting a drug-fueled masquerade ball with a bit of kink. A month later, they're kidnapping drifters off the street and staging depraved torture parties in somebody's wine cellar. Slaanesh doesn't distinguish between good or evil feelings, only intensity. Your moral compass, snap it in half and toss it away. Mercy, restraint, compassion. Those become laughable weaknesses in the face of ultimate sensation. If someone else's suffering brings you the slightest thrill, Slaanesh gives an approving nod. This is why Slaanesh cults often slide into horrifying crimes. The line between pleasure and pain not only blurs, it ceases to exist. Also, Slaanesh demands excellence, or at least the pursuit of it. If you fancy yourself a musician, you better strive to play the most rapturous, soul-stirring melodies ever heard. Even if you have to string your instrument with human Tzeentch to get the sound just right. If you're a duelist, you should seek the perfect duel. Equal parts elegant and lethal. Slaanesh is a perfectionist as well as a hedonist, so you'll be pressured not just to feel great, but to be great. Many followers become obsessed with their craft or passion to the point of madness, practicing endlessly or taking enhancements to push their limits. Those who fail to meet their own escalating standards often spiral into despair or self-destruction. A fate Slaanesh also finds delicious in its own way. The most talented and favored might get turned into showcases of Slaanesh's glory. The rest burn out, mere footnotes in someone else's grand performance. Lastly, understand that to Slaanesh, you yourself are a source of sustenance. Specifically, your soul is a delicacy for the Prince of Pleasure. The Eldar learned this the hard way. Slaanesh literally devours their souls upon death, which is why most Eldar now live in terror of she who thirsts. Human souls are less tasty, but a particularly excess-soaked human soul is still a fine morsel. So one unspoken expectation is eventually Slaanesh will consume you utterly, slurping up your soul like the final drop of an exquisite drink. The only way to avoid that fate is to impress Slaanesh so much that you're elevated to Daemon Prince Slaanesh status, effectively becoming part of Slaanesh's own pantheon rather than prey. In other words, become so entertaining and excellent that instead of eating you, Slaanesh says, "Hey, join the club. You're too fun to destroy." Attaining that is exceedingly rare. Most Slaanesh cultists deep down know they're probably damned to be soul snacks in the end, but by the time they care, they're in so deep, so addicted to the ride that they just don't stop. That's the cruel dynamic of Slaanesh.
You know it's going to end badly, but it feels so good right now that you convince yourself some combination of skill, luck, or denial will save you before the bill comes due. The lifestyle of a Slaanesh follower can at first look strangely glamorous, especially compared to the other chaos cults. Slaaneshi cults often form in high society or among the rich and talented, precisely because those people have the means and opportunity to indulge. It might begin with exclusive parties featuring exotic drugs, off-world art, maybe a secret fight club or two for those jaded with polite amusements. The members dress in ever more extravagant fashions, bright colors, sensuous silks, bizarre body modifications as the trend sets in. They seek sensation at every turn, even in daily life. Imagine Alandra, a noble woman. To use an example, by day she attends grand balls and diplomatic functions. Outwardly, the picture of poise, though maybe her eyes linger a bit too hungrily on life's pleasures. By night she slips away to a hidden pleasure den, where she and fellow revelers indulge in experiences that would scandalize polite society. Hyper-stimulating drugs, forbidden music that hits frequencies which stir unearthly bliss, perhaps pain mixed with pleasure in carefully measured doses. At first, it's all very thrilling and novel. Mundane life starts to feel colorless in comparison. As the cult deepens, subtlety burns away in the fires of indulgence. The gatherings escalate dramatically. The cultists push each other to try more and more extreme forms of gratification. If there's a line, they'll cross it. What begins as a bit of fun becomes outright depravity. They might start incorporating acts of cruelty because normal pleasures just aren't enough anymore. For instance, instead of just tasting expensive off-world wines, they start spiking them with narcotics distilled from the venom of a xeno beast, just to see what kind of high it produces. Instead of just listening to orchestral symphonies, they might lock a victim in a soundproof box and amplify their heartbeat as a drum beat to accompany the music. Yes, seni minds go to weird places. The cult's inner circle becomes jaded, always chasing that next high, a tale of decadence. In one Hive City spire, a young aristocrat named Alandra grows bored with the opulence she's grown up in. She meets a charismatic artist, Varus, who promises to show her real feeling. He leads her to secret soirees in the Underhive, where the wealthy and jaded seek forbidden thrills. At first, it's an artsy underground club with exotic performances. Dancers who blend pain and beauty, a chef serving hallucination-inducing cuisine, ambient music laced with subliminal whispers from a minor Slaaneshi daemon. Alandra is shocked, but deeply intrigued. The intensity of it all is unlike anything she's felt. This is Slaanesh's hook sinking in. As months pass, Alandra becomes a core member of this circle. The private shows become outright cult rituals. They wear bizarre Baroque costumes. Their banquets turn to orgies of sensation. Varus, who is effectively a Slaanesh's cult leader, pushes them further each time. One night, they might each drink a vial of a rare poison to teeter on the edge of death, just to make the eventual antidote and survival feel euphoric. Another night, they take turns with a torture device, experiencing pain beyond human limits. And to their warped senses, it's incredible. Alandra finds herself doing things she'd never imagined, and loving it. She has long abandoned any notions of decency or restraint. The cult members egg each other on, in a delirious feedback loop of excess. Finally, the cult seeks true communion with Slaanesh. In a candlelit basement draped with silks and spattered with previous night's blood, they perform a summoning fueled by insane amounts of pleasure and pain. They've got slaves drugged out of their minds, being ritually sacrificed while beautiful music plays. It's horrific. They manage to draw the attention of a Slaaneshi demon. Reality shimmers with pastel light. A tier forms, and through it steps a keeper of secrets. A greater demon of Slaanesh, towering, hermaphroditic, terrifying, and enthralling. Many cultists collapse, overwhelmed by the sheer presence of it. Those who remain on their feet are weeping in joy. The Keeper of Secrets gives them a congratulatory purr, and perhaps blesses them each with a touch. Its claw on Alandre's cheek sends the most intense sensation of pleasure-pain through her. Her hair turns pure white from the shock of it, and she's left forever craving another touch. The demon demands they continue to prove themselves. Frenzied, the cult spills out into the Hive City to put on their ultimate show. They turn a genteel masquerade ball happening at an Upper Spire mansion into a chaotic massacre, but a bizarrely artful one. They kill in ways that are horrific yet choreographed to them. A pair of cultists might duel a security officer in the middle of the ballroom, laughing melodically as each strike splashes blood like paint on the marble floor. Another cultist leaps onto a grand piano and plays an impromptu concerto that somehow harmonizes with the screams of guests being tortured in time with the music. Alandre, experiencing the apex of her journey, perhaps drags the Hive Governor's beloved daughter into the center of the hall, and in front of the panicked crowd performs a dance that is essentially murder set to music. And it is gorgeous in its ghastly way. The Keeper of Secrets watches from the shadows, its multitude of sensory tongues flickering in delight at the orgy of excess unfolding. By the time the authorities or arbitrators storm in, the cult is gone, off to their next spree, leaving behind a traumatized city and a scene of decadent horror, the likes of which will be spoken of in shocked whispers for decades. And Alandre, she ascends to the next level. Perhaps the Keeper of Secrets takes her as a favored servant, a sort of demonic apprentice. She might leave human society entirely, joining a war band of Slaanesh pleasure pirates that travel the stars, searching for new extremes. Her soul is long since forfeited to Slaanesh, but if you were to ask her in a rare moment of honesty, she'd purr with a blissful smile that yes, it was worth it. Better to live one night as an emperor of sensations than a lifetime of tedium, she might say. Meanwhile, not all Slaanesh devotees come from noble stock. There are plenty of rank-and-file guardsmen, or hive scum, who fall to Slaanesh via simpler lures, drugs and music in the Underhive, or the rush of violence turning to enjoyment. An Imperial Guardsman on a battlefront might discover in the chaos of war that he enjoys the thrill of combat a bit too much. The adrenaline, the sight of enemies falling to his gun. Maybe he starts seeking out more dangerous missions, not for duty, but for the high of it. If that kernel of obsession gets the attention of Slaanesh, or one of Slaanesh's cults, soon that soldier might start taking trophies in creepy ways, or sneaking off to inflict pain on captives under the excuse of interrogation. Each time feeling a forbidden thrill. By the time the commissar notices the gleeful light in the soldier's eyes during slaughter, it's often too late. That soldier might have already made a pact in his heart to the Prince of Pleasure. Next thing you know, that regiment has a heretic in its ranks, luring fellow troopers into secret debaucheries, and when the hammer comes down, a chunk of the unit goes rogue with him. Slaaanesh's corruption can bloom anywhere. The promise of feeling good, or feeling something in a grim universe finds fertile ground. Among Chaos Space Marines, Slaanesh's warriors are some of the most feared and bizarre. The Emperor's Children, the legion that fell to Slaanesh during the heresy, set the template. They turned their quest for martial perfection into a full embrace of excess. They mutilate themselves into beautiful monstrosities, enhancing their senses with implants, grafting extra limbs or sensory organs, anything to heighten experience. They go to war as if to a grand performance. Their armor is often barely decorated in riotous colors, etched with images that are equal parts exquisite and disturbing. They will charge into battle with sonic weapons blaring, deadly noise,
Marines shredding the sanity of their foes with amplified death metal, dubstep subsonics, or just screaming feedback that melts brains. They are showy, and they want everyone to know it. A notorious example, Lucius the Eternal, a Chaos Space Marine champion of Slaanesh. Lucius was so in love with his own skill that he couldn't bear the thought of anyone besting him and enjoying it. Slaanesh answered that conceit with a twisted immortality. If anyone ever defeats Lucius in a duel and feels pride or satisfaction in doing so, that person transforms into Lucius. The victory literally causes the winner's body to warp painfully over days until Lucius re-emerges, and the poor fool's soul is trapped conscious within Lucius's armor, eternally screaming in impotent anguish. Over time, Lucius's armor has dozens, maybe hundreds of faces fused into it, the damned remnants of those who've killed him and subsequently become him. It's a horrifying curse, except to Lucius, who thinks it's great because it means he effectively can't lose permanently. It's also peak Slaanesh, an elegant, cruel cycle where even the victor ends up as a victim and the narcissistic champion lives on, fueled by others' momentary thrill of victory turned to agony. If that kind of perverse poetic justice appeals to you, or at least doesn't deter you, well, draw your own conclusions. Slaanesh's realm in the warp reflects its nature, an endless pleasure palace, an alluring trap.
Travelers who have psychically glimpsed it and returned sane enough to report describe an impossibly vast palace of Slaanesh. Imagine gardens of unearthly delights stretching as far as the eye can see. Fields of perfect flowers whose scent makes your heart burst with joy. Lakes of wine, palatial villas with golden spires. There are also hidden pits of torture and pain, discreetly tucked behind silken curtains, because of course there are. The air is filled with haunting music and the laughter of revelers. Souls who wander here might find every carnal or sensory desire fulfilled by illusory courtiers or enslaved spirits of past victims, only to realize too late that they can never escape. They'll wander from feast to orgy to concert to something even more bizarre until they're completely lost in it. At the heart of this domain is Slaanesh's throne room, often described as a sumptuous boudoir meets throne, draped in silks and softly glowing crystals. Slaanesh typically appears in an irresistibly beautiful form tailored to the onlooker's deepest attraction. Male, female, both, neither, it doesn't matter. You will see perfection. Slaanesh will welcome a particularly bold or skilled soul almost kindly, offering them their heart's desire on a platinum platter. Many a soul accepted that final embrace from Slaanesh, experiencing a moment of ultimate ecstasy as they're obliterated and absorbed by the Dark Prince. For those less favored, they might end up as playthings in the palace halls, turned into senseless spawn creatures that eternally writhe in both pleasure and pain, or chained as living instruments that scream music, or other fates too grotesque to detail. Slaanesh's realm is ultimately a beautiful trap. It's the banquet that never ends, where you eat until you burst, yet you keep eating because you can't stop. Slaanesh Pras, unparalleled experiences. You will feel things no ordinary human or transhuman will ever even imagine. Your life will be an endless roller coaster of highs, literal and figurative, enhanced abilities and allure. Many Slaanesh devotees become physically superior, faster, more agile, sometimes unnaturally beautiful or charismatic. You might become the greatest swordsman, the most inspired artist, the most mesmerizing performer, basically the ultimate version of yourself, at least for a while. You get to indulge in all the forbidden fun the Imperium tries to ban. No Puritan shackles, party like there's no tomorrow because for you there might not be. Charisma and magnetism. Slaanesh's favor often makes you extremely attractive or fascinating to others, at least until you go full creepy mutant. You could be a rockstar warlord with legions of adoring mind-broken fans. If you play your cards right, or rather shred your guitar right and impress the Dark Prince, you could ascend to Demon Prince SS status. That means essentially living in luxury and excess forever, as part of Slaanesh's inner circle. The ultimate never-ending party as a minor godling of pleasure. Slaanesh con addiction. You will never be satisfied again. Today's mind-blowing high is tomorrow's baseline mekel. You have to keep escalating, and it gets real dangerous real fast. It's like having a black hole in your soul that just gets hungrier the more you feed it. Rapid moral and personal disintegration. To keep sensations fresh, you'll do unspeakable things. You'll cross lines you didn't even know existed. The person you were will crumble under layers of sin until nothing is left but Slaanesh's creature. Very high chance of a bad end. Many Slaanesh cultists burn out young, overdose on some pleasure, die in a duel or get executed by authorities.
Those who live longer might end up as grotesque chaos spawns after pushing their luck with too many gifts, and ultimately, Slaanesh is likely to devour your soul. The candle that burns twice as bright, burns half as long, and maybe gets its melted wax molded into a damnet's new stilettos. Mutation can catch up here too. Sure, at first you might just be drop-dead gorgeous, or have alluring demon eyes, but keep going and you might sprout weird crab claws, extra mouths that moan uncontrollably, or worse. Excess leads to excess in form, not just behavior. Eventually, many Slaaneshi devotees look less like sexy humans and more like bizarre demonic entities. Could be a pro depending on your aesthetic, but for most it's a con. Enemies everywhere. The Imperium despises all chaos cults, but Slaanesh worship in particular can earn a special fury, especially from the famously puritanical Ordo Hereticus of the Inquisition. Other chaos followers might also target you. Khorne's folks, for instance, absolutely hate Slaaneshi depravity and will gladly hack Slaanesh cultists apart given the chance. Even the Elder, who usually keep to themselves, will go out of their way to murder Slaanesh followers if encountered, given Slaanesh is literally their species' bane. So you're painting a big target on your back from multiple directions. Summary: Slaanesh is the best chaos god for those who live and are willing to die for passion, luxury, and the relentless pursuit of personal perfection and pleasure. If you feel that the normal palette of human experience is just too limited and dull, Slaanesh's promises to broaden your horizons to sensory realms you didn't know were possible. You'll become a shining supernova of sensation in a dark galaxy, burning brightly with every indulgence imaginable. Just know that Slaanesh's light is a consuming fire. Get too close and it will joyfully swallow you whole. Then again, if you're truly Slaanesh material, you might think that going out in a blaze of glory and ecstasy sounds a lot better than a life of quiet mediocrity. In that case, the Dark Prince awaits, hand extended, ready to lead you to the most exhilarating oblivion you can imagine. As a parting notorious example, remember Lucius the Eternal, the Slaanesh champion cursed to continually resurrect by possessing those who defeat him. That's Slaanesh's promise. Eternal fame in a way, but also eternal torment for the losers. With Slaanesh, even immortality comes with a cruel twist. It's horrifying and perversely poetic, which is exactly why the Dark Prince loves it. Now that we've sized up the 4 Chaos Gods in all their bloody, scheming, putrid and perversely glittering glory, we circle back to the burning question: which Chaos God is the best to sell your soul to? The cheeky answer is, of course, none of them. Maybe keep your soul to yourself and invest in some good armor and therapy instead. But hey, you've sat through this entire expose of damnation, so you're clearly entertaining the thought, assuming you're committed to making a deal with a Ruinous Power, and maybe already eyeing which color to repaint your power armor. Let's do a quick recap. Khorne, best for those who want raw, straightforward power and don't mind an ultra-violent short life. You'll never feel weak again. Fear and doubt get drowned out by rage, and if you love the thrill of battle, he'll give it to you non-stop. Downside, you likely won't live long, and retirement is either death in battle or an eternity of fighting in the warp. But hey, at least Khorne is upfront about it. No fine print beyond kill, kill and kill some more. Tzeentch, best for the cunning, ambitious and knowledge-hungry. He offers the thrill of outsmarting the galaxy, of knowing things no one else knows, and wielding the powers of sorcery and fate. Your life will certainly be interesting. Downside, you'll never truly know if you're manipulating or being manipulated. Paranoia will be your constant companion, and one wrong move might see you turned into a spawn, or worse, a pawn in someone else's game. But if you're clever enough and lucky, you might rise very high before the inevitable fall. Nurgle. In a twisted sense, Nurgle might be the safest choice. It's paradoxical, but he genuinely cares for his followers as a farmer cares for beloved livestock, albeit you'll lose your looks and probably your human dignity, sure, but you will no longer fear pain or death. You'll have a family of fellow plague friends who actually support each other in between sharing infections. Some say Nurgle's the best because he gives peace of mind in a cruel universe. Downside, eternal stench, visible rot, and well, you're spreading death wherever you go, so making new friends outside the cult is tough, unless you infect them too. But as far as the gods go, he's oddly the most welcoming and psychologically cozy. Slaanesh, the funnest ride, hands down. If you want to experience every thrill the universe has to offer, and then some, Slaanesh will deliver. For artists, sensation seekers, and those who feel limited by the mundane, the Dark Prince opens up a world of creativity and feeling beyond imagination. Downside, it's the classic candle that burns out fast. You will almost certainly come to a horrific end, but you'll have an absolute blast until then. If you value the intensity of life over the length of it, Slaanesh might be your pick. Just remember that every Slaanesh story tends to end in either horrific death or eternal damnation as a plaything in Slaanesh's palace. But maybe you're okay with that, given how incredible the journey was. If one had to pick a single best Chaos God purely from the perspective of a mortal looking for the best deal, it really depends on what you personally value, or what you're desperate for. Are you motivated by power and anger, wanting revenge or strength? Khorne will give you immediate results. You'll be feared and mighty until you meet someone mightier. Are you seeking meaning in the madness, a grand plan or forbidden truths? Tzeentch offers the depth and complexity you crave. Just beware that in his lies you might lose the truth of yourself. Are you at the end of your rope? Scared of death or suffering, Nurgle might feel like a grotesque but comforting embrace. He'll take away your pain and give you a messed up kind of hope and community. Do you feel life is bland and your potential experience is being stifled? Slaanesh has the keys to every pleasure palace. You will live more in a short time than most do in 100 lifetimes. Just that final step through the door might be a one-way trip. A lot of seasoned Warhammer folks would argue Nurgle gives the best deal. He protects his own in his way, and many of his followers are genuinely content, if utterly gross. The other gods often use you up faster. But best here is really like asking how you'd prefer to die, by sword, spell, plague, or decadence. Each Chaos God will destroy you eventually. It's just a matter of style. At the end of the day, and hopefully before you tattoo an 8-pointed star on your forehead, ask yourself, what do you want so badly that you damn yourself to get it? Power, knowledge, survival, pleasure. There's a Chaos God more than happy to oblige. They absolutely will grant you your heart's desire, and then some. The catch is that in the end, they get what they desire, your soul and your service until death and beyond. Whichever dark patron you choose, one thing is for sure, it'll be one hell of a ride. Literally, the warp will change you forever for good and ill. You might become a monster, but perhaps that's a price you're willing to pay to achieve what you want. So, which Chaos God gets your soul? Only you can ultimately answer that. Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh, each is eager to add another trophy to their collection. Choose wisely as one can in this situation. Or at least choose the one whose price you're willing to pay. In the grim darkness of the far future, there are fates worse than death, and you're about to sign up for one of them. But hey, at least you'll know why you did it, and you might even enjoy the ride for a while. Good luck, dear soul seller. May the dark gods smile upon your choice, because once you make it, there's no turning back. Enjoy your eternity. You earned it.